If I had a problem, I'd be starving. I'd be hawking this watch. I do not have a problem. I enjoy gambling.
Yeah, well, not quite. Yeah, let's stick to football.
We are back, baby! Am I live? Hey, these are family matters right here.
Hey, is that a regulation size football or what?
Hey, I think that's a first down in my book. Am I live? Are we good? Are we live here? No, your people, my people. Hey, I'm glad they worked it out. We're here now, so let's fucking go. Hey, I'm pumped. You guys are doing a hell of a job here at the Round Robin Pod.
Some sort of like welcome to the pod.
Hey, there it is.
No. You gotta do something.
Yeah, we need an intro, dude. Fucking welcome to the pod. Recording in progress. Welcome back. What's up, Jmac? How we
How's
doing?
it going? Just loving these baseball bets, baby.
Hey, dude, I am so excited for this. I'm like, I'm gonna put on a handicapping masterclass. So we're gonna handicap some NFL.
Do a quick rundown of your 5 that you can make into a short.
Yeah.
And
So
I'll do my 4 pending my last ones.
my 5 best bets for the NFL week 5. Let me pull it up with the names because I named them all. So my lock of the week is the Colts plus 2.5 in Jacksonville. I think the Jags quit on Doug Peterson and they head to London with a new coach. Number 2, my double media narrative New York fade. Jets plus 2.5 in London. Give me the Jets. The Vikings little sneaky blitzes are not going to work on Aaron Rodgers. Number 3, the sicko sharp motivation fade. I've got the Texans in a pick'em at home. Hey, the Bills just got blown out on Monday Night Football, Sunday Night Football. Everyone thinks the Bills will bounce back. Oh, they'll probably just beat the Texans. Nope, not me. Give me the Texans. That's 2 square. Number 4, the dumpster fire fade. I'll take the Broncos -3 because the Raiders are literally in a burning building and Antonio Pierce is pouring gasoline on Max Crosby and spitting on Devontae Adams. Number 5, the fake result wonky win double play. The Browns +3 in Washington. The Commanders can't just keep beating everybody. Give me the Browns at the bottom basement of their value in Washington. Deshaun Watson figures it out. The defense plays great. And I think they roll on the field and just smack the serve the cunt Commandos.
All right. I got 4.
Uh-huh.
5th pick pending. Number 4, we're taking the Panthers. Give me Andy Dalton on the road. The Red Rifles back, plus 3.5. We got the Bengals. Joe Burrow catching 2.5 points at home. Take that every time. Bengals plus 2.5 at home against the Ravens. Steelers, Sunday Night Football. All day long, -2.5, hosting the Cowboys. Monday Night Football, we're taking the Saints. Going to go marching in to Arrowhead Stadium and knock off the Chiefs, give them their first loss of the season, catching 5.5 points, way too many. For my 5th pick, most likely going to be the Jaguars, potentially could be the Raiders or the Cardinals or the Seahawks. I'll post it on Twitter tomorrow.
I forbid you from taking the
You can't.
I know.
I think you're wrong on that game.
I'm just kidding.
I think it's a net positive to get Devontae Adams out of there.
Hey, all those
He
stories.
sucks anyway. Devontae Adams sucks. Make this into a short. Dude's dropping balls. He can't beat anyone off the line of scrimmage. He's running these like negative routes. Dude's terrible. Get him out of there.
All those stories I've been reading all week, I've just come to the realization that it's a net positive for the Raiders that their whole house.
I hope they trade him to the Browns.
They should trade him to Carolina.
Seriously.
Give him to the Rifleman. So we're gonna handicap some NFL. Um, and then I think at the end, if we have time, we should talk a little Warriors basketball and then maybe about the preseason NBA and Karl Anthony Towns trade. But
First, we got to talk a little bit of baseball.
gloat about our.
That's a great,
I
great
mean,
wild
hey,
card
I mean, you see what I did for you.
round. New York Mets, baby.
Hey,
Pete
hey,
Alonso.
tell the monk dog we said Pete Alonso took him. Yeah, yeah. I got home from the gym and just put that on. Like I was like, oh, I'll just put the top of the ninth on because I watched like the first half of the game and it was no scoring. I got home from the gym. I was like, oh, I'll just put the top of the ninth on and see what happens. And literally the next pitch, Alonso goes just rocket ship to right field.
Yeah, good piece of hitting. So we went 6-3. We bet every road team. Every team was a dog and won 4.5 units. Pretty good.
Yeah.
6-3. Pretty good week for a couple baseball days. 3 days of baseball. Really 2 days
Yeah.
of baseball.
What's next tomorrow?
I've already bet all the dogs tomorrow, all the road teams tomorrow, which happen to
Yep.
be all dogs. It's going to be a great day of action. Nice little
Yeah.
Saturday we have.
I like that one a lot, actually.
Tigers, Mets, Royals, Padres.
Yeah, I like that one a lot.
Yeah, that'll be a good day. I genuinely think the Tigers are going to win that series. I think the Royals are going to win their series against the Yankees.
Yeah.
I think the Dodgers and the Phillies are both really good though, so we'll see. But American League's wide open.
All right. Well, we are in week 5 of the NFL, circa millions. And so one of the things that as I was handicapping these games, I was thinking about kind of the difference between the way you and I look at some of the stuff. And one of the things that I'm really stoked about is now we have 4 weeks of data points. And so we've kind of watched the season like seesaw a little bit, the narratives for each teams. This team's good, this team's bad. This team wins, this team loses. And one of the things that I think I'm pretty good at is for when it comes to pattern reading and what helps a lot with handicapping the football games is like narrative, like my instincts and like on understanding fading narrative stuff, I think is pretty good. And then you have some really, really exceptional pattern reading skills as well. And with numbers, in particular with numbers, like you'll be able to look out like, oh, next Thursday's game, we're betting the under, and you'll just crush the market, like crush the market. And so so I'll go first because this is one of my proudest handicaps, and I actually think you might be on the other side of this game, but I'm gonna try and work this out. Okay,
Me.
so my lock of the week.
I actually have 6 games, and I need to pick 5.
Okay.
So I might, if you can talk me off, maybe I don't know what you're going to say, but you might be able to talk me off of one of mine if you think I'm on the other side.
Yeah, this is the first week that I like a lot of games where I'm like, oh, like I like a lot of games. So I had to pick the 5 that I'm going to play in the contest, and I'll probably end up betting more on Sunday. But my favorite bet and my lock of the week and my proud handicapping game is Colts plus 2.5 in Jacksonville. And so you and I got on Tuesday, or the last time we got on, and we looked ahead to next week, and we're like we went through and our reactions to like, oh, I like this line early, I like this line early, and the Jags was one that we agreed on. And at first glance, I really did like the Jags, like a team that's 0-4 at home in a division game. Like they have to, and they've had a bunch of weird bogus finishes. So, and then over the next as I kept thinking about that game, my instincts actually shifted, and I was like, "Huh, I I actually don't think that an 0-4 team it can be like a really good spot to bet. Like to me, it's like a spot where you quit if you're 0-4. Like so, and then I was listening to a pod and they talked about the stats. The an 0-4 team um who's favored. So in the history and like or in the last 20 years, if you're 0-4 in week 5, uh and you're favored, those teams are 11-13 against the spread. And if you're favored by 1.5 to 3, they're 2-6. So it's pretty small sample size. And then there's some small data about like they leave for London next week. And so there's some bad stats on teams that are like the week before they go to London, teams are 4-8 against the spread. But the main and then there's some really interesting stats that favor the Jags in this spot. Do you know what they are? Like the head-to-head stuff, Jags and Colts.
Like career
Yeah,
head-to-head.
so the Jaguars have won 9-0 against the Colts in Jacksonville.
Jacksonville.
And um
What, in
and
the
they
last
won
9?
they've won 9 straight at home against
Yeah.
Jacksonville. And so at first you think like, oh, they own them, but then I'm like looking at like I don't know if that trend really impacts this. I actually think it might be the other way because so this is Steichen's second season, right? And so I went back and looked, and the Jaguars beat the Colts both times they played last year. And so I think in a spot where you at like the quick look at like a quick glance, you go, oh, the Jags have the motivation. They're 0-4. They're playing a team they have ownage over at home. And the market says that they're a favorite, even though they're 0-4. But then I actually think you get the Colts with more motivation because you have Steichen, who hasn't beat Peterson yet, and he hasn't beat the Jags yet in his tenure as a head coach for the Colts. You have the Colts quietly are the fifth best defense in the league in yards per play. The Colts have now beaten the Steelers, lost a close game to the Texans,
Lost to the Packers.
lost to the Packers, and then they won their other game. But so I actually think that they're the better team. Like I don't think that like and Jacksonville has no home field advantage really to speak of in Jacksonville. I also my main handicap, I'm kind of burying the lead here. My main thing for this game is I really think that this team has already it's over. Like I think there's a legitimate chance that they have no motivation to win this game. They're like hoping like that Peterson gets fired, either like an interim coach goes on the plane to London. And I don't think there's any chance that the Colts have low motivation in this game. They're a dog on the road in division and they're competing for the division. So the line has kind of, I think the line's at 3 most places. But if I were making this line, I would make this line a pick 'em. So I'm taking the Colts plus 2.5.
Okay. One thing we talked about earlier in the year was the double revenge spot. And usually you want to bet the other team thinking, okay, they're due to win this time after they've lost several in a row, especially after losing both times last year. And the data just says it's usually just the better spot to continue betting the team that wins every time.
Yeah, my counter to that is I don't really like the trend with Jacksonville and Indy specifically. And maybe I'm just being like nitty and like trying to extrapolate too much of the data, but I just think Steichen is 0-2 against the Jaguars. So those are the only two that matter. Because going back, like the Jags are like one of the worst franchises in the league. So they were like just trying to get a game every once in a while. You know what I mean? Like they were maybe winning like one of their like 4 games on the whole season would be like they beat the Colts and it was like the biggest, like their biggest win of the season. So I get what you're saying. It doesn't really help my case, but I really think you get the better coach, more motivation, better team, and then I think the Jags are in serious jeopardy of just quitting on Peterson. I also think Trevor Lawrence sucks. Like maybe he'll be good later, but I mean, dude, isn't he the highest paid player in the league?
No,
They just
Trevor
gave him,
Lawrence.
I mean, they gave him his new contract in the offseason. He's
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 certainly not
rich.
paid more than Watson or Dak or a bunch of the other guys. But
He's rich.
okay, so we have 2.5 in the contest. The
Yeah.
market has moved the line. The line's 3 now. So
Yep.
the market disagrees with you a little bit.
Yeah.
I think there is a little bit of home field advantage considering it's an outdoor game against a team who plays in a dome. So there's a little bit there. Maybe not, they don't have a huge home field
Yeah.
advantage. I agree with that.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
I don't think the season's over for sure at 4-0 or 0-4. It doesn't look good, that's for sure. But one thing that I just continue to really hone in on as the season goes is buying low on teams. Like this to me is a perfect spot to buy low again on the Jaguars. We bet the Jaguars last week +6. They lost again, but they covered. I think the line's just, I don't know. I think 2.5 in the contest. Also, there's a lot of data about like, the longer a team goes without winning a game, like the harder they play. Like nobody wants to lose every single game. So I think this is going to be my instincts are just telling me the Jaguars are the right side in this game. It is one that's like I want to take the Jaguars. So I think you were right. This is one that you thought I was going to be on the Jaguars still.
Mhm.
We talked about it on Monday. To me, what I'm waiting for is tomorrow morning. If Joe Flacco is playing, I'm not going to take the Jaguars. And if Anthony Richardson's playing, I'm definitely taking the Jaguars. So that's kind of where I am on this game. I'm very close. It's like, to me, Joe Flacco is the better quarterback. I'm so down on Anthony Richardson.
He can't be, he's not that much better though. Like
But
that's the
he's
thing.
so
like,
much more of a turnover liability. Like the play he got hurt on last week, he fumbled. Like it was his first opportunity to turn the ball over and he fumbled and got hurt. And then Joe Flacco just played like he played really well last year. He played really good on Sunday. I have gone back and forth about if Flacco plays and they know they're preparing for Flacco. Like if on Monday they had said, okay, Joe Flacco's starting,
Yeah.
then I would have liked the Jaguars because they would have had all week to know that it's Joe Flacco and prepare for him. But
Yes.
no one knows who's starting.
This is one of the reasons I actually like this game. And I was kind of quietly rooting for Richardson to play because I felt like it would make me look even sharper when they roll him. Because I agree. Like one of the reasons I hate the Jaguars in this spot is they don't know who they're preparing for, and they're two totally different styles of quarterback. I personally don't have Flacco as any better as more than like a tiny bit better than Richardson overall. I think Flacco's become like insanely overrated based on like having like a few good games with the Browns. But so my thought then to you would be if you're either playing the Jaguars or not playing the game based on who gets announced as the starting quarterback and all the stuff I laid out, I would say just don't play this game, probably.
Right.
But
yeah, it's a close one for me.
Yeah.
I think Anthony Richardson's that bad though. I don't think I think
like
Joe
Richardson.
Flacco is such a better passer, like so much
for
better.
For sure.
And if you're a struggling defense at home, you really would rather face Anthony Richardson than Joe Flacco in this spot.
All right, what's your number? Well, I'm going Colts +2.5. I think they'll win on the field. I think the Jags are going to quit. I think Peterson gets fired. Interim coach goes to London, and Bill Belichick becomes the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars next year.
Who do the Jags play next week in London? I'm blanking right now. I can look at it real quick. Is it Bears? I think they play the Bears.
One of the games is the Bears, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that leads me into my first pick, which as soon as the lines came out on Sunday night, actually, I was looking at the lines and I saw Panthers +5. And I was ecstatic to see that because there's no way the Bears should be favored by 5 points over anybody in my book at this point in the season, at least from how they've played and their coaching staff, what they've shown. In the contest, it is down to 3.5, Panthers +3.5. I still think there's a half a point of value in this bet. The Bears are going to London next week. The Panthers are playing I love the Panthers coming into the season, like as just like one of the bad teams that are going to win and cover more than people think. And
so the Panthers were like the sharp, like wise guy darling coming into the season.
Yeah. I agree.
And then Bryce Young torpedoed it.
Yeah. And now with Andy Dalton, with Andy Dalton, they've looked much, much more competitive.
I think they're better than the Bears with Dalton.
I do too. I was just going to say, I think they're a better team than the Bears. I think they're a better coaching staff, maybe. Like, I don't know for sure yet, but I think so. And I think with Andy Dalton, he's for sure right now a better quarterback than Caleb Williams. It's just a pick. I think it's the right side. I think it's still none of the public wants to bet the Panthers. I think there's still just a little bit of added value there. And if it was 3 in the contest, I might not take it, but 3.5, I have to take Panthers.
Yeah.
We're trying to go 5-0. I don't want any pushes, right? No +3 at the +3.5. I'm going to take Panthers. I like that the Bears are also going to London next week.
Yeah, this one just barely didn't make my 5. I love the Panthers. I couldn't put them in which is kind of contradictory because I just gave the Colts at +2.5 and they've gone to 3. But yeah, this line came down already so much from 5 to 3.5. I love fading the Bears, so yeah, I'm in total agreement. My next one is really, really a fun one. So this one almost fell off my picks, but it ended up getting back to my second highest strength. So the Jets, in my opinion, are the easiest team to handicap, and this is why they ended up being back in such high regard for me, is they're such an easy team to handicap. Like, if I just went back through their whole season, week 1, everyone loves them. They were the number 1 choice in circa millions. They get completely obliterated on national TV by the Niners. So week 2, everyone hates them. Like, they're off them. And they kind of bogus covered in Indy or in Tennessee. Then week 3, people weren't sure what to do with them, and then they blew out the Patriots and they had the extra rest, and then, oh my God, Aaron Rodgers looks amazing, blah blah blah. Then they lose in a close game against the Broncos. So you have that, and then I'm selling the Vikings at the very, very top of the market for them. Like their stock couldn't get any higher. And so I think the Rodgers and Saleh drama is overhyped. I don't actually think that it really matters. I think Saleh is a very bad coach anyway. So whatever they have going on is fine. I think that the Vikings' success has been because of 3 things so far this season. 3 main things. One is they've played amazing at home in Minnesota. This game's in London. Number 2 has been Brian Flores has disguised blitzes against all inexperienced quarterbacks. And Sam Darnold has balled out against bad secondaries. So none of those 3 things are available. So I look at the advantages that Flores has at disguising blitzes and disguising coverages and like totally like freaking out Purdy, Love, Stroud, um, and Daniel Jones. Those are the quarterbacks they faced. I think he finally doesn't have an advantage. Like Rodgers is going to call every play for the line of scrimmage, whether like no matter what Hackett calls anyway. It's going to be on Rodgers to figure it out. And then Darnold has picked on a lot of like not great secondaries, and the Jets have a really good secondary. And then this is probably my favorite part of this is in the history of the NFL, if you lose a game where you give up less than 12 points. So the Jets lost 10-9 to the Broncos last week. Those teams in their following week are 21-4 against the spread. 21-4. So if you lose a game that you like really, really feel like you shouldn't have lost, you have a ton of extra motivation coming into the next week. That's what that trend tells me. And then also, I think there's actually some interesting things about where the Jets actually might not be as susceptible to some of the things that the Vikings are doing well. And then I'm also just selling the Vikings at the top of the market. I mean, I faded the Vikings last week, so I'm not just going to get scared off of doing that again now on a neutral field. They're 4-0. To me, this is a game. The Jets have to win this game, or like they're fucked. They have to win this game. So I'll take the Jets plus 2.5 in Tottenham Hotspur or wherever the fuck they're playing football at in London.
I like a lot of what you said, but the reason that I was gonna probably have this game if it was in the States, but just considering that it's in London, and I kind of just have decided I'm not going to bet the Thursday night games. I'm not going to bet the London games.
Yep.
One thing I will say is the favorites in London are 35-10, and they're 30-14-1 against the spread.
Yeah, but here's my counter to that for this specific game is we'd have to go look at what happened when the line moved through 0, because this game the Jets were 5-point favorites all summer in this game. So the lines flipped like 7.5 points through the 0, and the Jets were 1.5-point favorites last week before they lost to the Broncos. So if you bet the Jets minus 1.5 8 days ago, they were the favorite. So that's just kind of, because I think that's a very interesting stat that like the team that's supposed to win wins in London. Unfortunately, this is kind of an outlier game because for the last 8 months, the team that was supposed to win was the Jets, and then 5 days ago the line switched. So I'm not sure who's supposed to win.
All right. Last week, one of our favorite games was the Ravens at home against the Bills. And
buddy.
The Ravens put a whooping on the Bills on national TV. I've been buying low on the Bengals all year. I've just continued to believe that they're going to catch fire and
this is a Bengals plus 2.5.
I'm buying low on the Bengals at home in a division game, getting points, and I'm selling high on the Ravens coming off that game. I think Joe Burrow is playing at like an MVP caliber level right now. He looks so good to me. And I think the Bengals, historically, these two teams play so physical and such close games all the time. To get 2 points at home with Joe Burrow, who to me is the better. This is a Lamar game, though, maybe. This might be one of those games where Lamar is running all over the place. But I still think I like the home team. Like we saw it last week, how good the Bills looked going into that game, and they just had no shot. They just got mopped up in Baltimore. I think it's going to be similar. It's going to be a closer game, but I'm going to take the plus 2.5, take the Bengals, the home team, the home division dog, who with the quarterback who I think might be in the MVP race if the Bengals can get hot, stay hot.
Yeah, I agree. This was one I considered taking and I left off last minute. I'll actually be at this game. I'll
Hmm.
be in the building um with some Bengals fans. So there's some stats too I sent you earlier in the week
Hmm.
that kind of favor this. So and I like this game if it becomes a shootout or high scoring. I like the Bengals and so the Ravens O line has been pretty good. The stats get kind of murky because their run game has been so amazing, but in obvious passing situations, they've been very, very bad. So 3rd and 8 or more, Lamar has been sacked the most in the league. So to me, the Ravens O line is generally good, but in obvious passing situations, they're very bad. So, which is basically what everyone's kind of handicap on the Ravens is anyway, is like if they get out to a lead and their defense is playing really good, then they're great. If they have to throw a bunch, then you don't really want to be on the Ravens. Um, I like this spot for you a lot because what I saw watching the Sunday night game last week was the Ravens defense like like salivating at the mouth to beat the Bills. And so what are the chances they get up like that 2 weeks in a row? I mean, it's
No,
possible,
yeah,
but I could actually see that being the
the
Bengals.
Bengals this
Yes.
week.
Yeah,
That's
this
kind
is
of how
like
I
this
feel.
is their early Super Bowl now. Um, they had to win that game in Carolina, and now they're home for the Ravens. So yeah,
I
you have
also really believe that like in that locker room, the Bengals locker room, they know that they've started slow the last 3 years and caught fire and just went on these winning streaks. And I think sometimes it just takes one win to kind of like everyone kind of is like, oh yeah, like we're in this. We could if we win this week, we're 2-3, we'll be tied with the Ravens. It's like it just takes it's almost like when you're on like a cold streak shooting a basketball and you go to the free throw line, you make them, but you just need to see the ball go in the net almost. Like you win a game, it changes the way your mindset is. They get this
absolutely.
home game, the crowd's going to be into it. Defense is going to play very, very hard,
They're
and
also
we
one
I
and
know Joe
three.
Burrow is going to play well.
They're 1-3. They need
Yeah,
this game. They
for
really need
sure,
this
for
game.
sure. It reminds me a little bit too of week 3. Remember when the Ravens played the Cowboys, and the Cowboys were 1-1, and the Ravens were 0-2, and I just felt like the I always think I feel like things tend to go towards the mean kind of.
Hmm.
And it just made sense that the Ravens are going to win this game. They're both going to be 1-2 and in still in the playoff hunt rather than the Cowboys win and the Ravens go 0-3. This feels like just the right spot for the universe where the Bengals win outright and they're both 2-3 and everything's competitive and that division just stays like very competitive. And because this is to me still the best division, is at least in the AFC.
Oh, yeah.
Like
It's the
probably
best
in all of
division in
football.
football for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah, for
mean,
sure.
the Browns are obviously terrible.
Yeah, we're gonna get to them.
Yeah.
I've got them on the list. So, and they're now, well, I'll just do them next because um yeah, so the Browns are getting 3 in Washington, and it's just so gross. I have to play it. It's this is where I kind of pride myself on being like good at this. Is like nobody wants to bet the Browns against the Commanders this week, and
I know.
I'm going to. Um, I think we've finally gotten to the point where they're like totally underrated. Um, they've had the weirdest season of any team so far. They get boat raced by Dallas. Um, More charges or like rumors get dropped on Watson. He's terrible for the first 3 weeks. They go and they win a really weird game in Jacksonville where nobody really gives them credit for getting the win, and all the gambling people say the Jags should have won, blah blah blah. Then they get the Giants in that really weird spot where the Giants are coming off of the game where they totally should have beat the Commanders. And we have the Giants in that game, and then they have the fluky loss to the Raiders last week. So um, the so last week I had the Cardinals, which was a Commanders fade coming off of their Monday Night Football win with the Bengals. And I missed a huge component of that game, which is that Cliff Kingsbury needed his revenge against the Cardinals. And so I'm just gonna so I get to fade the Commanders again. I'm not afraid of doing that. They haven't beat anybody with a good defense. Like they've just been the only team that has an even like middle of the pack defense was the Giants, and they should not have won that game. And then this is what will lead into my next pick too. And I'll let you go first. But so the most profitable trend that I've found so far this season is you take the flukiest results from the week and then you fade those teams or play those teams the next week. So week 1 was actually the only ones that didn't work out as well. But week 1, you had that Titans Bears total fluke outcome. And then you had Rams Lions total fluke outcome where the Lions should not have covered that game against the Rams in overtime. Then week 2, the Lions lose to the Bucks. So we would have off of that fluky cover, we should have faded the Lions. They lose to the Bucks. The Titans should have covered the next week, and the Bears ended up getting another lucky cover. But then we started to get into the good stuff. The Raiders Ravens result in week 2, I think was the flukiest result of the season. And then the Raiders get blown out by the Panthers at home the following week. The Ravens go to the Cowboys and blow them out. Then the Bucks when they beat the Lions was actually a fluky one. The Lions won that game by a lot on the stats. Then they get smashed by Denver at home the next week. The Giants and Commanders have that game where the Giants can't win even though they scored 3 touchdowns and didn't allow a touchdown. And then they go in and beat the Browns. Then the Rams have the fluky win where they beat the Niners coming back out of nowhere. And then the next week, the 49ers obliterate the Patriots. And then the Rams can't figure out a way to cover against the Bears. So my fluky results from last week that I'm fading this week are both in these. So the Browns +3, I think they should have beat the Raiders last week. They had their 2 biggest plays of the day called back on penalties, and the yard say they should have won that game. I think the Raiders had the other side of that fluky game, so I'm going to be pitching the Broncos in my next pick. I called it something. You got to help me come up with a name for these. I called it the fake result wonky win double play in the text box. But if we gotta come up with a name for it, because I really do think it's just been a really profitable spot this season that I went back and cataloged. But my instincts and recollection is that this spot has been really profitable for us for many years. That like, oh, that's a weird result. Like I watched that game, or I saw the stats from that game, or it felt like that wasn't the right side that ended up winning that game. Now, next week, let's play the side that got the bad end of the wonky result, and then fade the side that got the good end of the wonky result. And so I have Browns +3. Oh, also, I texted Pete Sankey, big Browns fan, and I said, hey, what's going on with the Browns? Are they going to play hard Sunday, or is the team quitting? Like, what's going on? And he just wrote back, quitting. So I'm just fading Sankey too.
That's smart.
Yeah. Like he doesn't know what they're doing. And also, did you see that Watson's PFF grade? He finally had a good game against the Raiders. So I just think it's a really good spot to get value.
Yeah. This is one I almost took.
He had a really good game against the Raiders, and they still lost. And then the Commanders, the Commander stock will never be. I mean, like I agree with you that they're good, and I like Daniels, but the Commanders are not going to be like the other thing. I was fading the Commanders last week, and then they won again, like by a lot. So whatever carryover motivation they had after beating the Bengals and the letdown spot that I thought they would have in Arizona, it's like double pertinent now, because all week everybody's been just like, oh my God, the Commanders. Like what a spot to get a double like cross narrative fade where the Browns I think are undervalued. The Commanders obviously are overvalued. And I really think if the Browns aren't quitting, if the Browns don't quit, the Commanders defense is bad and the Browns defense is good. I think the Browns might like run away with this game, like play like really motivated and like beat the crap out of the Commanders. Like this will be like could be like the big like confusing result of this weekend.
Okay. Yeah, if it was 3.5, I think I would have also taken the Browns. It was
Yeah,
just like it's one of the grossest ones on the board.
so
And so
gross.
that's are immediately where my eyes went to. Um, but I ended up staying off that one. I
Okay,
think. So I'm gonna go over my four and then we can maybe discuss. You can help me with my fifth one. But
okay.
my third one is gonna be Pittsburgh Steelers at home as a small favorite on Sunday Night Football against the Cowboys. This is the fourth week in a row they've been -2.5 or +2.5. Um, no, I think they've been -2.5 every single game. Yeah. Um, Last week they were favored on the road, small favorite, and historically you should fade them here. And they lost. Tomlin did not cover. Week before, small favorite, 2.5 at home against the Chargers. They win and cover. And then the one before that was the Broncos, 2.5 on the road, but they were -2.5 against a rookie quarterback, which is just a Mike Tomlin special. So on all these Mike Tomlin bets, they've held true. Week 1, they were a dog on the road and they won outright again. Like every single time, for some reason, I have been thinking all week, I can't believe I bet the Steelers against the Colts last week. Like every trend has just held true for the Steelers. This one is like the ultimate spot. -2.5 at home, Sunday Night Football. Like Pittsburgh on Sunday Night Football is going to be bonkers. The only thing that I don't love about this game is that the Cowboys have the extra rest. That's the only thing about it. But I'm taking Pittsburgh. I love this side. I love everything about it other than that. And I'm continuing. I think the Tomlin trends just continue. It's just like an in the dark. I have to take this game. So Steelers -2 at home Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, this game's really interesting. I do not, I cannot make a really legitimate case for the Cowboys, but I also just think that the line is probably right. So I'm rooting for you, and
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
I'm also been very down on the Cowboys all year. Dak and just
yes,
the whole team. I just don't think they're the Cowboys of old. I've been fading them. And I
yeah, and this
just
is like what we talked about, right?
it's a spot I
Like
love here.
Like this, and this is what I'm about to make a very similar case. My next pick is the Broncos -3. And
Yep.
so when you like I like the Broncos and they're a team that I've had my finger on the pulse of them pretty good so far this season. And so like you could make the argument like, well, the Broncos laying 3 is crazy. Like how could it be more than 3? Like you know what I mean? Like what if it were like in how like what could happen that the Broncos would be laying more than 3 to the Raiders? And so like I could see that argument, but then I look back and you go, okay, well they beat the Jets in New York in a game that the Jets had to win. And they beat the crap out of the Bucks, and the Bucks are good, right? And then they lost to the Steelers in their only home game yet this season, and the Steelers are really good. And they lost to the Seahawks when in week 1, they're like, oh yeah, well, they lost to the Seahawks. But wait, the Seahawks are really good too. So they've played 4 good teams. They're 2-2. And normally I would say coming off 2 wins, you're not going to get the peak motivation, but they're coming home for their first home game in 3 weeks. And it's a division rival. And I think you have a huge coaching edge. So Part of the reason why I'm laying the 3-2 when the line's gone to 2.5 is I want to win this contest, and I just don't think that a lot of people are going to take them in the contest when the line moves away. Um, and I think the Raiders are a dumpster fire right now. Like you and I talked about earlier in the season, when the Raiders win, fade them the next week because they're celebrating like crazy. When they lose, uh, bet them the next week. They ended up beating the Browns last week without their two best players in a fluky result, and I think they're a mess. I think all of it.
Minshew is out there.
I think all. I think all of their. I think all of this stuff going on is like I'm really into like getting on sides where I can get the right, like have a team that's super motivated. Like it just really reminded me when I watched the Ravens Bills game on Sunday. I was like, okay, these are the games that you want, like when you want to like be like, hey, I want to make like my biggest bet of the last month. How fucking awesome would it have been to have had the Ravens on Sunday night? And it was like and you go, oh my God, they know how important this is to me. Like, look at how Roquan Smith is playing football, or they're yeah, Roquan Smith. Like, look at how they're playing. Like they understand how important this game is to all of us. So that's the kind of spots I'm trying to align myself with. And I just think there's way too many chances of the Raiders being in like a total like letdown, coming off a win, two best players not out there, dysfunction in the locker room, coaching mismatch. And then I think you get the Broncos, who have this incredible defense that's coming home for the first time in 3 weeks. They haven't won a home game yet. They just beat two really good football teams there, so they're playing with confidence, and they have the coaching advantage. So, and then it's also like we just talked about, it fades the fluky result of last week where the Raiders get a win and a win against the spread when all the stats and information says they actually probably should have lost that game to the Browns.
Yep. We'll have to come back to that game for potentially my fifth pick.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention for the Steelers, Steelers are coming off a loss. Cowboys are coming off a win.
Yep.
That's part of the reason I'm taking the Steelers, just continuing to buy low on the teams who lost the previous week against a team who won and looked good the week before. So the same as with this last game, my fourth game, Monday Night Football. I'm taking the Saints. They've been the team I've been super down on. After week one, I still didn't like them. After week two, you asked me if the Saints are good. I said, no, I still don't buy the Saints. But now that they've lost the last two games, I think they're undervalued here. They're getting 5.5 points. And I think if they had won either of those last two games, they'd won. If they were 3-1, I think this would be like a 3.5 point spread.
Mhm.
So I think they've gone from like the talk of the league being 2-0 and just scoring every time they have the ball to now they lose two games and everyone's kind of out on them, like, oh, same old Saints. Now they're getting 5.5 on Monday Night Football against the Chiefs, who just never blow anybody out anymore. Like, this team is just always playing close games. I think the clear game plan for the Saints is going to be to hold the ball, run the ball as much as they can, continue to give it to Kamara, maybe have some Taysom Hill plays. The other thing is Derek Carr, as much as I don't think he's a great quarterback, he's played the Chiefs a ton, and he always plays the Chiefs well. He beat the Chiefs with the Raiders several times where it was like just kind of like big underdog outright wins. So I think if anybody is gonna give the Chiefs their first loss, I actually think the Saints are gonna win this game outright on the money line. I think they just have so many injuries, and their offensive line just isn't good. They're averaging like 18 points a game. Kelsey still doesn't look good. They have no Rishi Rice. They have no Pacheco. I don't think Xavier Worthy's like a number one guy. I
Yeah.
think they're probably going to end up trading for a wide receiver. I thought I like I don't know. Like if they win this game, which they probably will, like this probably is a trap game somehow, but um I'm gonna take the points and bet the Saints. I hate it because I love it so much. It's one of those like, oh, I love this game so much that it makes me nervous.
I
Like the
actually,
line, the line just doesn't make sense to me.
I took it out for that reason.
Yeah.
So you and I talked about this was the first game. So I was wondering if we were going to get to this because this was the first game we loved on Monday. And one of the things that I did this week is all of these games that I submitted are basically the opposite sides as I liked originally early in the week. And as I went
So you're
through
just fading yourself. You're fading your first instinct.
yeah, kinda. I'm just fading my first instinct when on re-examination, my first instinct looks really square. That's just like, oh, okay, my first instinct on this game looks actually like really square. So let's look more into that, and then I can run the other side. So, and I couldn't really actually find anything that says that the Saints is square. I think that the Saints plus 5.5 is sharp.
The line
But
is just suspicious.
it's fucking insane. And the thing about the Chiefs that I hate is that how do they still have motivation? But they do. Like every game, they've won 4 in a row. They're winning by the smallest point margin in the history of the league. They now have no Rice, no Pacheco, Kelsey's washed, their O-line sucks. Like, dude, how much motivation do these guys need? Oh, and by the way, the game's on Monday Night Football on national TV. So, like, there's just no way that they're not gonna try hella hard. There's just no way that their defensive coordinator's not gonna like come up with a bunch of stuff to fuck with their car. Like, there's just no way that they always have all this motivation. So you made such a good case though. I'm contemplating putting it back in as my 5th pick. Because my 5th pick is really, really, really sick. It's like really disgusting. It's it's maybe the slickest like handicap that I've done ever. And it's a total fade myself.
Is it the Rams?
No, it is
Okay.
not. It is not the Rams.
I'm putting the Saints down. I'm taking the Saints.
Nice. I
This is one that I almost talked myself out of, but I just couldn't get there on the Chiefs.
yeah.
I think it's going to be a close game. I think
Yeah.
the Saints will probably
I think
be
the
winning
Saints
by
are going to win. I think the Saints are going to win the game.
I think there's a good chance the Saints are winning by a field goal and the Chiefs get the ball, and I can't lose essentially unless it goes to overtime. But I think the Chiefs will probably drive and either score a touchdown or they won't.
Yeah.
So that's my thought.
Yeah, I'm so bummed you just said that because I just got like a fucking disgusting premonition of an overtime win by 6.
Like last night's game?
Yeah. Yeah. So my last pick is the Texans.
Okay.
Texans
That's not that crazy, I don't think. I think I lean Texans also.
Well, here's why it's crazy.
But I want to hear your handicap.
Another game where the market disagrees with me, but another game where there's outlier information available that kind of makes the market movement like not null, but like it's so wonky to me when a team a week ago was favored and now they're dogs or whatever. Like the same thing happened in the Jets game. Like the lines are just getting yanked all over the place based on recent results. And this was my favorite. Like when I looked at the board on Monday, I go, oh my God, the Bills are a pick 'em in Houston coming off of that bloodbath. But I just think that's such a square reaction. Like, oh, like anybody can think of that. Like, oh, the Bills just lost on national TV. Oh, now they'll probably win. That's not, that's very square. Like very, very square. So the way I see it, the Texans are 0-4 against the spread. So they're kind of due.
Yeah.
Their only loss on the season is to the unbelievable Minnesota Vikings. And I don't need them to cover a spread. I just need them to win a game at home. And this is what I was talking about earlier, where I try to I want to be aligned with motivation. The Texans are going to be, this is their early season, first quarter Super Bowl. They've got Josh Allen and the Bills coming in to their building. And then I have a little football stuff is the Texans have a bad O-line, but I actually think in a matchup against the Bills that doesn't really hurt them that much because the Bills don't have some world-beating D-line or defense or interior defense. I also think if you wanted to get tape on how to beat the Bills, just watch the all 12 from the Ravens game on Sunday and just run the ball right at them and do what they did. So I think the very square reaction would be, oh, the Bills are going to come into this game with a ton of motivation. But I actually think that there's a really strong argument that the Texans are going to be much more motivated in this spot at home against the Bills and Josh Allen. And I think I think the squares are going to say, oh, well, the Bills aren't going to lose 2 in a row. Well, I mean, I don't know. They'll probably just lose 2 in a row, and then they'll get back on the horse next week. So I'll take the Texans in a pick 'em. But I'm still I really like the Saints and the Panthers. So we don't have to submit till tomorrow, luckily.
Yeah. So that's true. These are 4 I'm going with. I think I'm taking those 4 for sure. And then for my last game, I'm very much deliberating over. I think I'm off the Browns just because it makes me sick. I don't want to lose betting on the Browns.
Okay. You'll just be too mad about it.
Yeah.
If they quit on Deshaun Watson.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is very possible.
Yeah, it's possible. It's possible, yeah. It's possible.
So I'm between the Colts. I'm between the Jags. I like the Jags. Jonathan Taylor's also out now. I might, if Anthony Richardson starts, that'll probably be
the Jaguars suck.
That's what everyone is saying. I know. It's the perfect buy low spot.
That's
the perfect buy low spot.
Well, except for that they're favored in a division
How
game.
fishy is that?
Yeah, those are both good points. Okay, here's some other games.
I think, and also the Colts are the most public bet game so far.
Yeah, I saw that. I thought that was interesting.
So it's because the line is so. It's the Colts are getting. Obviously, the Jags are terrible. Everyone's just going to fire them. Fire the Colts. To me, it's the most obviously fishy game, and it's the most obvious public side. So
yeah, until the Jags don't even try the whole time, and the Colts just run for touchdowns over and over and over again. Okay,
I don't know, man.
But yeah, that's not
true. Maybe that happens, but
that's not really a real sharp handicap though. That's just but okay. Here's some other games I like.
Hold on. So I'm between the Jags. The other team that I think is just really gross, a really gross spot to bet that everyone thinks they're just a complete dumpster fire. You even said those exact words.
The Raiders.
Taking the Raiders +3, who have beaten the Broncos 8 times in a row.
I think I'm just not going to let you take the Raiders, though, because you
Good thing I can submit my own picks. Hey,
you
ever played?
You said you're not going to play the Raiders off a win. You said that.
I don't think I said that. But we talked about that wasn't it's when they're overhyped. They beat the Ravens and everyone are the Raiders good?
My thing on this game is when you look at the Broncos and Raiders are both 2-2, but the Broncos have played 4 good football teams and they've won 2 games on the road, and the Raiders have had the 2 of the 5 flukiest wins of the whole season. So there's a legit argument they should be 0-4. And then this line
dominated the Ravens for 8 minutes.
For 1 quarter. Yeah, for 8. You said for 8. You said for 8 minutes. Yeah. So my thing is if the Raiders were 0-4, what would the line be?
If they were 0-4?
If they were 0-4 with no Crosby and no Adams. Be 4.5.
Maybe, but Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. I just
Bo Nix, though, like Bo Nix has been terrible. He threw for 60
he
yards
was
last week.
awesome against the Bucks.
I don't know. I don't think he was that good against the Bucks, to be
He
honest.
was
He
awesome.
had like a QBR of like 80, which was like by far his best game. But
Yeah. He's a
I wouldn't
rookie.
say he was terrible against the Steelers, which makes sense. Terrible against the Jets makes
Yeah.
sense.
All
Crosby
right.
is supposed to play. And the last thing I'll say about this game, I think everyone thought Adams being out last week was a bad thing, and it turned out, I think, to be a good thing. Like Minshew got the ball out to more wide receivers, more people touched the ball. And if he really is this big of kind of a bum and like a crybaby, as
Yeah.
like things are coming out that make him look really bad.
Yeah.
And if that stuff's true and he's now out of there and he's not even going to show up to the game, all that is happening and everything that's coming out is true. I think it's a big boost. It's like a morale boost and more
Here's my
guys step
counter.
up and have, okay, go ahead.
Here's my counter to that. What if all of the bad press that's coming out about him is being very obviously leaked by the coaching staff?
Yeah, I mean,
And
if it's not true, then
well, no.
that's
I'm
a
not saying it's
totally
not
different.
true. I'm saying the disconnect between the players
Okay.
and the coaches is so big that the players are mad at the coaches no matter what's happening with Devontae. That's kind of my handicap for what's happening with the Raiders right now. Is like, where was Crosby? Crosby didn't go to the game last week. Like, what do you mean he has a sprained ankle? Why aren't you on the field? I just think there's so much smoke for there being a bunch of weird stuff happening with um with Vegas
Antonio
that
Pierce.
yeah, that like he's his way of trying to get the locker room back to me seems wrong. He's just throwing players under the bus, like to the media, leaking story. I don't know. It makes me very worried. I'll be really interested to see what happens with the market in this game coming into
Yeah.
Sunday, because if Crosby ends up not playing, the line will go back to 3 or 3.5, like 100%.
Yeah. Um, okay. Well,
I also like the Niners and the Seahawks
okay.
as
So
favorites.
here, the thing about the Raiders game is it goes against my kind of crossfade since both those teams, Broncos and Raiders, both won last week.
Yeah.
I actually am leaning towards Arizona coming off a loss against Cliff Kingsbury, now against the division rival Niners, who they always seem to play close.
Yeah.
Um, I'm gonna have to check on all of who's playing tomorrow. And then the other one I like the Rams. It's just another weird fishy line.
Hmm.
And I like the Seahawks. Neighbors is out.
Yeah, I really like
I
the
think
Seahawks.
Daniel Jones is benched, right? Are they
No,
going
I
with Drew
think I
Lock?
I
Is he playing?
think I think Daniel Jones is playing, which actually is probably better. Um,
Yeah, maybe.
let's
Seahawks
see.
coming off a loss, but the Giants are also coming off a loss. So the only one that really fits my narrative that's left would be taking Arizona. So I'm gonna have to wait till tomorrow and see, because my number one pick is if Anthony Richardson plays, I'm taking Jacksonville. So I'm just gonna have to post on Twitter tomorrow.
You know what Daniel Jones was asked why he underthrew so many deep balls against Dallas, and he said that he overthrew some in the previous weeks, so he just wanted to make sure he gave his guys a chance.
See, it's just everything comes back to the mean.
That
Hey,
is
you
such
can't catch an overthrow,
Hey, that
Connor.
is such
You
a
can't catch
funny
an overthrow. You
Hey,
can
that
only
is
catch an
such a
underthrow.
funny answer. Um,
I know. I've
yeah,
never heard anything quite like that.
all right, I'm gonna chop that 3 minutes and put it at the very beginning and
All right.
just start things off on fire.
All right.
I'll
All right.
see you later.
Yep.
Bye.